Well, our target member Mark has been trying to figure out Isn't It a Pity? And I figured I would take this chance to give you a couple hints because I love this song and love the album. It was a little overproduced. I actually really liked hearing versions of George playing these songs more acoustically on a couple of different albums. There was a whole series of them from the Let It Be, what's called the Let It Be rehearsals or the Get Back sessions in January of 1969. The Beatles got together to try to record an album that was not going to be as heavily produced as everything they'd done recently. Sgt. Pepper, the White Album, Magical Mystery Tour, all of that kind of stuff. And the idea was to get back to their roots. So they wanted to get back to basic songs that they could actually play live. And hence the tune, Paul's tune, Get Back, was the subject kind of that. Well, George had a bunch of songs that he had been writing since 1968, since their trip to India, that he kind of had a backlog of tunes because the Beatles only really put 2 songs of his on each album. And so in 1970 when they broke up and decided to go do solo albums, George had a huge set of songs, which is why he put out a triple record, All Things Must Pass. But Mark, as far as what you're doing with the, enough details, by the way, the Let It Be rehearsals are available from Yellow Dog Records. Yeah, really. They were called Yellow Dog, and they made a lot of these things. But, well, no, they didn't make, there's probably only 1,000 of these around. I'm fortunate enough to have one. And listening to this record, it's a CD, folks. It never came out on a record. But listening to that, I can tell you a couple things about what George had in mind with this song. And version 1 from All Things Must Pass is in the key of G, and for the first 4 measures, that's a 16-measure progression where the first 4 and the last 4 are basically the same. Even the second 4 can be the same, but the third one is different. And so you're way on the right path with this kind of rhythm, and somebody mentioned that it seems a lot like Imagine. It is a lot like Imagine. If you just strum the chord and then hit the bass note on the and, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and G, could play it as a bar. G diminished. If you don't know how to play a G diminished, go check out my chord companion and figure out how. There's a lot of different ways you can play G diminished. You don't even need G in the bass. You can play it as a 4-finger diminished 7 chord. C with G in the bass, and then back to G. So the song uses this pedal point idea of just having the bass note doesn't change throughout the chords. First line can be played like that, second line can be played like that. Third line, the bass does change, and what you want to do is go from a G to A7, keeping the high G on, playing the A7 with a partial bar, and then go to a C chord and keep that high G on. So in the third line, it's a great way to change the bass notes, but keep the G, the pedal point G, on the top. And then in the fourth line, back to G diminished. You could reach the G in the bass with your thumb, which I think I saw you do once or twice. You could use the bar at the 3rd fret version for the diminished chord too. And then of course back to C with G in the bass, and there, and back to G. So hopefully that made a little bit of sense. I'm going to show you a quick version, although I should turn this into a whole lesson. On this album I was just talking about, Let It Be Rehearsals, Volume 3, from Yellow Dog. George, he capoed it at the 7th for this.